Coach Jim Foley was laying down the law to his players at Mitre 10 Stadium. Goalkeeper Clint Gosling was more horizontal than vertical during the training session, and striker Rod Brown came back for more and more goal shooting practice. It's become a familiar scene for the Breakers in recent weeks, coming back to training after a defeat. But according to Foley, the squad is determined to claw its way back to the top of the ladder, a position enjoyed before a losing streak to NSL aristocrats Parramatta, Adelaide City and Marconi. The Breakers are set to turn around their losing run when they take on lowly placed Heidelberg at Austral Park on Sunday. Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News.
One of the most popular symbols of Christmas is the Christmas crib, and this was popularised by the universally accepted Saint Francis of Assisi exactly 770 years ago in 1223. It depicts what we're really celebrating, the birth of the Son of God, Jesus Christ, in a stable at Bethlehem. The child is there, his mother Mary and his foster father Joseph. They call it the Holy Family. In a week's time, on the 1st of January 1994, we start the International Year of the Family, and our emphasis will be on what a family is all about. It's the most important and most basic unit of society and of the church, and emphasis will be placed on the roles of mother and father, roles that are indispensable and irreplaceable. I hope your family this Christmas celebrates together. You pledge your love and support for one another, and you celebrate the Year of the Family this coming year.
Greetings, friends. Christmas is a time of memories. It is a season of magic and mystery. Friends and relatives gather, exchange gifts, share festivity, fun and food. Children get that sparkle in their eyes. The world stops, joy breaks through. Christmas brings sad memories too. The child left empty by a loved one who is no more. Tensions created by strained relationships. Bills that must be paid. Children left destitute. Abuse of alcohol. Carnage on our roads. Christmas can be a nightmare to many. In the midst of these memories, both good and bad, there remains the greatest memory of all. A faint, often forgotten memory of God who comes to us as a baby in Bethlehem. It is a memory that has become an embarrassment to some, a quaint childhood fable to others. But in the midst of this memory is a truth that in Christmas a new day can begin. Touch this memory, come to church, worship, reach out to those who find this season painful. May the Christ child this Christmas give you and me memories that enable new beginnings. God grant us the courage to touch Christmas. God bless you.
Driver fatigue has been blamed for the deaths of the two people at about 2:30 this afternoon. The driver and front seat passenger died instantly when their Toyota Camry slammed head-on into a gravel truck. Police believe the car veered to the wrong side of Muswellbrook Road, about 1 kilometre east of the Upper Hunter Valley town. The truck hit the car, ploughing a further 30 metres with the Camry wedged under its bull bar. Two children in the back seat of the car were airlifted to hospital with serious facial injuries. The driver of the truck and his passenger were in shock but uninjured in the crash. Police gave a warning to holidayers driving over Christmas.
The traffic is very heavy on these roads, and I just want to reinforce to people to take extreme care on the roads.
Jason Neuenhoff, NBN News. Although Matthews was passing on some tips to the 30 children at his clinic at Howsat Indoor Sports Centre, he wasn't as keen to talk to the media. The former Test star has been keeping a low profile since he was found lying unconscious outside a Perth nightclub 2 weeks ago. Women's Weekly have paid the 33-year-old a reputed $20,000 for the exclusive story on the incident. His Blues teammates also seem to have been kept in the dark.
I mean, there's been a lot of spectacle about it in the papers. I'm not really going to say anything. I don't really know enough about it to say anything. So when it comes out, well, you know, it'll be great news, I think. Everyone's looking forward to seeing what really happened.
The Wilderness Society has an assurance from Environment Minister Chris Hartcher that a Barrington Wilderness area will be announced in the new year. While the hunter may have missed out on being included in the latest declarations, there's concern about the makeup of the new wilderness areas which have been announced. 63,000 hectares of the Barringtons have been assessed by National Parks and Wildlife as worthy of wilderness protection. Wilderness Society spokesman James Whelan says his group will accept nothing less than a proper declaration for the tops.
Only 4.4% of the state remains as wilderness, and yesterday the Minister went a very small step towards protecting some of those, and we're going to be pressing him hard in the new year to really put his money where his mouth is and protect wilderness.
Newcastle parliamentarian Bryce Gaudry has criticised the government's decision, but believes it gives the hunter a chance to get the best deal on the Barringtons.
It gives us a chance to say, look, the Barringtons is worthy of World Heritage listing, it's worthy of wilderness nomination, and gives the advocates of wilderness the chance to argue further with the government. Don't take this bits and pieces approach. Look at the Barrington as a comprehensive area and think of its wilderness values.
The state government has defended its announcement, saying they've now honoured their support in 1987 of the Wilderness Act legislation.
For the last 3 years, motorists driving along the Pacific Highway north of Newcastle have been intrigued by a strange-looking rock on the side of the road. Leyland Brothers World was quite a talking point, but after spending $3 million of their own money and $3 million from the bank, the Leyland's company was placed in receivership. After a messy settlement with the park sold for just $800,000, Mike Leyland needed time to reflect.
Well, the first few months we were sort of a bit worried about it all, and then we had a video shop down at Lambton for 9 months, and then the fellow that's got it now asked us to come back up here, reopen the park, so we jumped at it.
18 months since he left, Mike is back with wife Marg to manage the park and rebuild their lives. Brother Mal has moved to Queensland to set up a business. Mike has been working hard to get the park's special rides and attractions ready to be reopened on Boxing Day. He says if everything works out, he may look at buying back at least part of the park in the years ahead. Meantime, if you have any questions, you can again ask the Leyland brothers.
Well, they can ask the Leyland brother. They can ask me. Yeah, I'll be here every day.
The papers were found at the Raymond Terrace tip yesterday afternoon.
I'm really amazed that they would dispose of this stuff in this matter. It should be destroyed permanently so that other people can't get their hands on it.
The man who found the papers wishes to remain anonymous but says hundreds of the cards were on the site. The cards are applications for accounts or investments. They give details of names, addresses and amounts of money to be put forward. One professional couple wanting to invest more than $60,000. The accounts are all closed, dated between 1976 and 1985.
The kind of records that are involved, they are not of a terribly high level, but having said that, I recognise it is still private information.
Mr Frank Wotherspoon from the Newcastle Permanent is surprised by the find, saying all old records are meticulously destroyed by a company that specialises in that work. He says the Newcastle Permanent has never had a problem like this before.
Certainly it is a matter that will be pursued immediately and with a great deal of concern.
Peter Ryan, NBN News.
It's a day where Christmas bonuses can be won or lost. Race club officials say already the entire members area and reserve seating has been booked out.
We'll be happy if we have a very good meeting on Sunday, because last Saturday was our best Saturday meeting in over 12 months, so hopefully things are on the up.
But it's not a day to leave the family at home while the cash changes hands. The club is providing free jumping castles, merry-go-rounds and family amusements. And of course all the action won't be off the track. Some of the state's top horses will be out for a run. In another promotion the club is experimenting with, they're offering half-season passes to Newcastle Greyhound meetings.
They can save 50% by buying a Greyhound pass for the half season starting in January, and we'll offer the same deal for the full season from July.
And what you save on a pass to the doggies, Gary Harley suggests you put on number 1 in race 5 at Newcastle on Sunday. And at Randwick on Sunday, try race 6, number 3. There will also be races at Caulfield. Gary suggests a few dollars each way on number 3 in race 6.
It's always been a major complaint of country people paying too much for fuel, sometimes up to 10 cents a litre above their city cousins. The Farmers Association has called for country people to lobby their petrol station owners to advertise prices on signboards like in major centres.
What I'd be doing is asking motorists to ask those retailers, where is your signboard? Because what we want to see is competition in those areas, and signboards are an indication of that.
The association says prices will drop with competition. Service station owners are not legally required to advertise their prices. For farmers buying bulk fuel, another word of advice.
So clearly the message is, if you're having fuel delivered bulk on farm, don't be just satisfied with ringing one fuel distributor. Ring around.
With farmers buying up to 10,000 litres at a time, a 1 or 2 cent per litre reduction can save a lot of money.
There were long faces at the Cornish household in the Newcastle suburb of Gateshead this morning. The 5 children had awoken at 5 o'clock this morning to find their presents missing. But thanks to Charlestown Police, they were returned just before lunch, and what a greeting the officer received. There wasn't even time to get them through the front door before 5 pairs of eager hands began searching. It was a special moment for 6-year-old Christopher, who has leukemia. His dad's workmates had chipped in and bought him a pair of rollerblades. They were with the other gifts stolen during the night. That, though, was all forgotten when they were strapped on and given a workout.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for the present for me.
You're all right, mate.
Further up the road, the Van Brackle family was also waiting. Dean and Karina had woken to find most of their presents gone. They too were keen to find out just what Santa had delivered.
She's got everything back and she's over the moon. And the police have been absolutely wonderful. They have to get it back so quickly and everything.
A 21-year-old Gateshead West woman has been charged by police. They're still looking for a male accomplice. Sergeant Peter Doyle was one of the officers who worked through the night to make sure the gifts were returned. The crackle of Christmas paper and the smiles on young faces began early this morning, many up before the sun as they delved deep into their Christmas stockings to discover just what Santa had delivered. It was a similar scene repeated in thousands of households across northern New South Wales. So too the church services, which began at midnight last night. It's a special time for all denominations as they celebrate the birth of Christ. At St Mary's Cathedral, Armidale, the midnight service led by Bishop Kevin Manning was well attended. So too the morning Eucharist at Newcastle's Christ Church Cathedral. The message was similar, one of hope, joy and celebration. In Lismore at St Carthage's Cathedral, the choir led the service in song. In each city and country town, Christmas was uniquely celebrated. At the Old Bar Caravan Park near Taree, Santa gave the reindeers a rest and hopped on board a camel. It's a tradition for Santa to visit the caravan park, and there were plenty there to accept his gifts of lollies and ice blocks, although some couldn't quite eat them fast enough. And on the subject of eating, Christmas wouldn't be right without the traditional Christmas dinner. It was a big happy family who tucked into a hearty meal at the Newcastle City Mission and many other welfare organisations around the state. Volunteers prepared the meals, giving up their day for others, an example of what Christmas is all about.
The flames consumed tinder-dry bushland in the gully between John Hunter Hospital and McCaffrey Drive in the Newcastle suburb of Rankin Park. For the second time in 24 hours, firefighters tackled the outbreak. A westerly breeze added to the woes of officers from Wallsend, New Lambton and Charlestown fighting the blazing scrub. After several hours on the job, heat and smoke took its toll on a member of the Charlestown tanker crew. He was initially helped by his colleagues who summoned an ambulance. Paramedics stabilised the injured firefighter on the scene and transferred him to nearby John Hunter Hospital for treatment of smoke inhalation. The fire offered a stubborn resistance throughout the day, with neighbouring residents only able to watch and hope their homes would be safe. Motorists found there were few ways to escape the thick smoke, with police diverting traffic from the area. For others, the Boxing Day holiday was a much more pleasant break as thousands flocked to the coastline to enjoy superb beach and surfing conditions. With little other entertainment, the esky spelled out many beachgoers' intentions. Those planning a lengthy stay in the sun were making sure they were prepared.
Ideal weather conditions have also made the boating fraternities' day. Despite large crowds being out on the waterways, both Port Stephens Coastal Patrol and Coast Guard Swansea have reported no major problems. Those keen to just have a leisurely Boxing Day packed out the region's picnic spots, using up the remaining Christmas excesses in a more relaxed atmosphere.
The first heat had only just started when Australia's Ron Pine cut across the track and straight into Scott Bloomquist. No sooner was the American back on the track and he returned the favour. It was then quite clear that nobody cared too much if they went home with some bent panels or not, so Bob Brewer and Rob Pine teamed up against the youngest American. The chief steward thought things were getting a little out of hand and warned everyone to settle down.
And he's pointing out that this test match racing has got to cool it down a little.
They paid scant regard to the advice, and as soon as the next heat started they were back at it again, but this time the bumper-happy Americans came off second best. The Americans were now rapidly running out of parts. One of the cars didn't have a single panel that remained straight. But local hero Bob Brewer didn't give a hoot. He wanted to make sure the job was done properly.
Bob Brewer slammed right into the side of him. Parts going everywhere and Blomqvist car's a wreck.
With 10 of the 12 scheduled heats completed and the Australians well ahead on points, the Americans surrendered, but not before Brewer was disqualified.
And the Chief Steward instructs black flag on Bob Brewer.
And although he left the track a winner, Brewer wasn't altogether happy.
I told those Yanks we'll either race or if they want a demolition derby, well, I'll join in that too. And all we've got to do now is sharpen that Chief Steward up there and we're laughing.
But there must have been something in the water last night because plenty of the drivers had the flipsies. Richard Maud needed ambulance attention after this roll, and Brad Osmond escaped unhurt after his street stock rolled in almost slow motion. The next round of the Australia-USA Test Series will be in Newcastle on Wednesday night. And Newcastle Speedway rider Stephen Davies will head a six-man Australian team against the best Britain has to offer in the first round of the three-test series starting on New Year's Day at the Sydney Showground.
Several people on Nobby's Breakwater about 7:30 last night saw the man who had first appeared to be floating on his back. Fisherman Ian Evans called out to him. On the scene within minutes, the Westpac Rescue helicopter and Police and Maritime Services Board launches continued the search, but hope of finding the missing man faded with the daylight. From descriptions given by those on shore, police say the man appeared to be in his mid-30s with dark hair and a beard. He was wearing a horizontal striped blue and white shirt. Anyone who may know of anyone fitting that description who is missing should contact Newcastle Police. Jim Sullivan, NBN News. NBN News.
This is one of the men police are seeking in relation to the alleged assault outside the Commonwealth Bank in Curry last Thursday. A 26-year-old employee of this bottle shop was depositing the day's takings in the night safe at around 9:15.
When she got out of the car there, she did notice two men standing against the wall of the bank. When she went up to actually place the money into the night safe, one of those persons approached her and knocked the lady to the ground. There was a short struggle over the money there, and eventually it was reefed out of the victim's grasp.
The woman, who is 5 months pregnant, wasn't seriously injured. She followed the men to the car park of the Curry Workers Club. The offenders were seen driving away in a stolen white Ford Falcon. The pair were sighted later that evening at Weston and then finally in Abermain, where they crashed the stolen vehicle and fled into bushland. Despite a police search, they couldn't be found. Police say the men escaped with a large amount of money. They are confident of making an arrest.
The main offender is, which we have the identikit of, has very prominent, long, curly, dark hair, which makes him stand out. But I'm told that the identikit is a very good likeness of him.
All information should be directed to Cessnock Detectives. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
No stranger to the Salamander Bay courts at Roach Racket Resort, Ivan Lendl spent this afternoon warming up for the two-day exhibition series being staged on Centre Court. Lendl is using his two matches as preparation for impending matches at the Hopman Cup, Australian and New South Wales Open tournaments. Ivan's coach, Tony Roach, appeared pensive as his charge limbered up in warm lunchtime conditions against Indian youngster Leander Pays. The 20-year-old Wimbledon title holder and former world junior ace tackles Lendl in a serious encounter on Saturday morning. Opening match tomorrow in the exhibition series has Aussie Sandon Stolly facing Lendl at 10 o'clock.
Daphne Shaw is no stranger to international competition. She has competed at the Pacific and World Bowls Championships and has a gold medal from the women's fours at the 1990 New Zealand Commonwealth Games. But Daphne's hunger for victory is far from satisfied. She sees the Commonwealth competition as the ultimate experience and would love to represent Australia at the Canada Games next year. So with only 2 months until the trials, her performance in every tournament counts. She's teaming up with Dorothy Roach in the women's masters pairs in Sydney next week, before combining with Hong Kong's Mark McMahon in the international pairs the week after. The international pairs tournament boasts a world-class field, and Daphne says although the competition will be tough, she's confident she'll do well.
It's the end of 1993 and also Harry Pallister's last day on the job. For 15 years, his voice has been heard over the airwaves, prioritising emergencies and guiding ambulance officers to accidents, fires and disasters.
Some people think ambulance officers more or less get immune to that type of thing, but don't. They always stick there.
Before moving into the radio room, he spent 15 years as an ambulance officer attending the sick and injured.
It pays to have somebody that's had the experience on the road, and then you put them in here. Well, okay, they can relay, or you can relate your knowledge to them.
Harry will leave with many memories. One of the most testing experiences was the day the earthquake rocked Newcastle.
Just because you get one event, the routine work doesn't stop. It still went on, and it was my job to get that rolling again. We had people waiting everywhere for transport.
Colleague Alan Playford says Harry's skill has saved the lives of many people in the region, a life's work that was recently recognised with an Australia Day award.
Nothing short of magnificent, and I don't know how we're going to replace him. Indeed, there will be replacements, but they're going to have big boots to fill.
Mr McGrath's action against high petrol prices comes in the wake of many other efforts to stop country people being ripped off, including those of member for Tamworth, Tony Windsor. Mr McGrath travelled the electorate of Barwon last Thursday and Friday looking at petrol prices, which ranged from 75.9 cents at Narrabri to 69.5 at Edgeroy. In other areas, per litre, petrol was 73.9 at Boggabri, Gunnedah, Manila and Bingara, 74.9 at Warrialda, 72.9 at Moree and 69.9 at Gurley and Ballata. Mr McGrath says he hopes to use the Price Watch program to pressure country stations to keep prices down, as well as a source of continual information on price movements.
But I advised people that I was doing this petrol price watch on Friday, and on Saturday the prices in Narrabri dropped to 73.9 and to 72.9 in some places.
Which was a drop of how much?
It dropped about 3 cents a litre overnight.
Mr McGrath says he cannot take direct credit for the drop, but with petrol prices in Sydney today at 62.9 cents and at Brisbane 53.9, prices in their 70s in country areas does not encourage tourists.
When they budget for their holidays, they budget a little bit extra for petrol in the country, but not 20 cents a litre. They just don't budget for that. So therefore, they either don't stay as long, which means our hospitality industry misses out, or instead of buying at a restaurant, they buy at a takeaway and we miss out somewhere.
Mr McGrath says he's blaming the oil companies who appear to charge service station owners in the country with a price differential of up to 8 cents. He says people in the country should pay almost the same as those in the city.
Well, this is what we've got to get on to the politicians, and I've been asked by the shadow ministers in Sydney to chase us up and to report back to them so they can go through and try and get on to the oil companies to get a price parity right across the board.
A luxury fiberglass catamaran making its way from Lake Macquarie had too much help from the wind and tide which jammed it against bridge pylons for several hours. None of the 4 on board was injured and, although secured to wait out the racing tide, the cat suffered a crack in a hull. Police towed the debonair to the safety of a lake marina for repairs. Last week, another yacht on its way into the lake suffered a similar fate but escaped serious damage. Royal Australian Coastal Patrol officers warned skippers negotiating the channel to beware of the strong seasonal tide surges which run up to about 20 kilometres an hour. Andrew Lobb, NBN News.
The source of today's fires was in the Seahampton area, and by early this afternoon the neighbouring suburbs of Edgeworth and Glendale were in the path of the advancing blaze. As thick smoke blanketed the area and bushland was being consumed at a rapid rate, a state of emergency was declared in the Lake Macquarie area.
41F was declared here by the Lake Macquarie Council only about 30 minutes ago. And some of those resources that we've got up in Singleton, the Bushfire Brigade resources, are now being relocated back down here to the Lake Macquarie area.
Luckily no homes were destroyed in this area, but farmland was scorched as the blaze consumed the dry grass. Walls End became the next to fall to the firestorm. A blaze sweeping through Gretley Colliery headed for homes in adjoining Ganambi and Hill Streets. Despite the intensity of the outbreak, firefighters managed to save homes which had been under threat. Senior fire officers believe the fires have been deliberately lit.
We certainly know that quite a number of the fires and the outbreaks have, by looking at where they've started, have been deliberately lit.
The firestorms are being compared with the bushfires which ravaged the Lower Hunter in late 1991.
Expecting a repeat of Monday's weather, firefighters spared no effort to get an effective battle plan in place for Lake Macquarie and Newcastle, concentrating overnight on containing key trouble spots at Awabba and Stockrington. By this morning, weary volunteers headed back into the bush once more, seizing favourable weather to fight fire with fire, back burning at Stockrington. The front line kept supplied as always by the Salvation Army. Further south at Awabba, a well-organised group was ready to attack any outbreak. When this blaze flared on the F3 freeway near Palmers Creek, both New South Wales Fire Brigade and bushfire units were on the job in minutes. Smoke forced closure of the northbound lane, traffic being diverted through Freeman's Waterhole. New South Wales forestry workers are also battling fires in this area, and the Forestry Department has closed the Wattigan Mountains to all visitors. While the wind steadily increased, it did not approach Monday's gale force, making it possible for firefighters to maintain the upper hand. But they know the war has not been won. Higher temperatures and stronger winds are forecast for tomorrow. Jim Sullivan, NBN News.